All right, so we've got the overview. Let's dig in and start talking more about the process itself. We're looking at this process. This is a way to break it out into smaller steps, into smaller bites, really. So the process of developing a work hour estimation begins with developing a project-specific scope of work. And to do that, you need to gather all of the data that's currently available for your project. So that might be pictures, aerial maps, safety studies, accident reports. There might be bridge inspection reports that would really help you get an idea of the level of work needed. And you'll gather that together and share it with your specialty units. That's going to help them try and determine what level of work effort they need to contribute. You likely would do this through a pre-scoping meeting with your specialty units. After everybody's got a handle on the initial project information, you can use that to really develop your tasks and customize the general scope of work to a project-specific scope of work. The project manager is in charge of drafting a baseline schedule and related activities, but the reality is they can't do that by themselves. They really need the input and contributions from our specialty groups. When everybody has kind of put those items together, you've refined your scope of work, you've got hours input, everyone is documenting their assumptions of how they got to those hours, then the project manager will combine all of that together and do some quick checks. Those quick checks are really just about, it's like a gut check. Do you feel like this looks right? Does it seem reasonable? Is there anything that really raises a flag and makes you pause? And then lastly, you're going to hold a scoping meeting. This is really where you're kicking off work. Your scoping meeting should never be the first time anybody has seen information about a project. It shouldn't be the first time you're discussing risks or concerns about the project. If you have a blended team, you'll likely bring your consultant in somewhere around step 5. This is for what I would consider a smaller or more typical project. If you had a large project, and I'll use that I-25 GAP project again. If you had a large project like that, you may want to create a small task order and bring your consultants in for those pre-scoping activities, getting everybody on the same page, helping with the gathering of the data and the initial investigations. Something I want to point out, just as a note, we've got everything listed here as project manager activities, but if you're reading the project development manual or looking at official guidance from CDOT, you'll likely see that the RE is responsible for these tasks. I would say the majority of the time, your RE is going to delegate this to the project manager. The less experienced project managers, you're really going to want to do this work in parallel with your RE. Reach out to them for advice, making sure you're asking the right people and getting the right information prepared. So step 1 is developing a scope of work. And I really can't emphasize this enough. One of the most important things here is documenting your assumptions. So how did you decide to put that work in or create that activity? So these assumptions, likely you'll also be capturing these in your project delivery plan that you're putting into PM Web. And then your assumptions are really specific to items or tasks that are that you're giving consideration to. You could have standard assumptions, which are similar on any project, or you could have some project-specific assumptions. So an example for that, a standard assumption, a plan set will be developed for both the FIR meeting and the FOR meeting. Those are standard, likely to happen on any project. A project-specific assumption may be more in line with the work expected. So you might make an assumption that there's under 1 acre of wetland impact, and therefore pick tasks that would be in line with that less than 1 acre. Could be quantitative. Maybe you're only planning to design 100 lineal feet of guardrail replacement, that just want to put that in as assumption right off the bat. Or it could be descoping. So you may start to look at your project and realize that what you have, the work that could be done in that area, is going to cost a lot more than your budget allows for. So you may need to document that you are intentionally not going to address items at this time because they don't fit within your budget needs. A good way to start determining your project team is using PM Web to assign your project roles and responsibilities. And this gets everybody starting on the same page. So as you're developing your scope of work for pre-construction, I really recommend starting with the general scope of work outline and filling it in and making it project specific. So you'll want to identify your project limits. And to do this, you'll want to start talking to your specialty units. Everyone is going to see this project in a different light. Your hydraulics team may see watersheds that need to be addressed. Your environmental team may see a wetland impact that you're not looking at. Your roadway designer might just see edge of oil to edge of oil. So you'll want to talk with all of your team to get those project limits laid down. And it's better at this point to encompass as much of the project that might be included. Adding or extending your project limits later in the project, it really could have a big impact. Any clearances that have been started, if you change your project limits, those may need to be restarted. And so it could really affect your schedule and budget. You'll want to clearly state your project goals. What transportation problems will your project be trying to improve? And these align with the project goals in section 1, number 2 of your general scope of work. You're looking at, are you trying to improve capacity, improve safety, eliminate congestion? Is it a bridge rehab? Are there multimodal limitations in the area? And lastly, well, not lastly, because the scope of work is actually quite long, but the next focus area is looking at context classifications. They designate your project by looking at the geographic regions and characterizations associated with those geographic regions. Considering these classifications can really help you determine which specialty units need to participate, and they might help you gauge the complexity of the work that's going to happen in the area. So this is a map of context classifications that we're utilizing at CDOT. You can see it kind of steps up in increments. So you've got your mountainous environment and then your rural places, suburban places, which have some small differences between traditional neighborhoods and downtown places, and then your full urban core. The mountainous environment, you're really going to have some of those environmental impacts, likely wildlife, water, possibly rockfall. So those are your complex pieces in there. It may be harder to reroute traffic, so that may add a level of complexity in your phasing. The rural places, you may have different type of equipment that you need to design to. Your bridge may need to be able to handle specific farming equipment or ranching equipment. That oversized agricultural equipment will really play into your design work. And again, there may not be a lot of detours in this area, so phasing would be a consideration. Suburban places, you're starting to get less of that environmental impact, maybe more of the utility and high traffic volume impacts. Traditional neighborhoods, this is one I consider your involved stakeholder, right? We've always got to consider our stakeholders, and maybe here phasing or scheduling timing of your construction might really matter. You'll need to consider the vehicular traffic and start to think about that multimodal aspect as well. Downtown places, again, we're really upping that utility conflict possibility and that multimodal aspect. You're going to have more walking, more biking, more vehicles trying to get around. And it's really that area where people are trying to gather and get to shops or restaurants, etc. And lastly, our urban core. So think about this as really the heart of downtown Denver. You know, there's a lot of utility conflicts. The traffic is terrible. The multimodal options are limited, but the pedestrian traffic is heavy. So it's going to add a complexity level to your project. All of them are unique. All of them need to be addressed. It just depends on where you are on your level of complexity. So when you're looking at those areas, that's going to kind of trigger you on which specialty groups you need to contact. And I'm saying this is a trick question, what groups should you talk to? Really, as project managers, we don't know what we don't know. So it's better to reach out to all of your specialty groups. A lot of people see projects from a different lens, and so you'll want them to take a look and see if they can catch something important or unique about your project that you haven't quite seen yet. And then you want to think about what level of personnel can perform the work. Can you get an EIT to do the drafting work and some of the investigations? Do you need a PE level to do the design work? Again, how do we keep that RTD level out of the design work? And putting those together, what is our ability to do it in-house? And when do we need to bring in consultants and build that blended team? As you're talking to your specialty groups, I think you're going to start hearing the risks come up. You'll want to capture those. When you're sitting down with your consultants and trying to figure out what level of work you're doing, knowing what the risks are and where those risks lie will help you make some of those planning decisions. Lastly, if it is safe and possible, it's really recommended that you do a site visit. It's not a required element. I know that we have other abilities to kind of tour the road, but being in person is the best way to take a look at your project and really see how everything is going to come together and be impacting each other. These pre-scoping discussions, they're really best to have face-to-face. You don't want to just shoot off an email and hope for the best. You want to have the discussions as you're talking through things. It might trigger some ideas. You might notice that you will have to talk to another specialty group, but it's really best to do it in person. And when we're talking about the specialty units to contact, it's not a small group. So I understand that this is a lot of work to contact each of these teams and work through. Some of them may be short conversations. Some of them may be more involved. I'd just like to remind you, don't forget your maintenance staff. They know a lot about the corridor and the as-is conditions. And remember to bring your construction staff in early. They might have some insight into phasing that would really help you design your project more effectively. I think your more experienced staff, they know how to start these conversations. They know what information they're trying to get out of the specialty units. For a less experienced staff, just knowing where to start may be a problem. So we've put together some almost conversation starters that you could have with your specialty units to get the conversation going, to really dig into your project specifics and get to the bottom of what your scope of work is going to entail and what the level of effort is needed to achieve that. So, you really want to reach out to your right-of-way and survey teams and find out, is there going to be appraisal or acquisitions needed? That's a time-consuming activity, so that's an important one. Like I said, get your construction staff in there for constructability. Maintenance has all of that detailed information. Where's that water ponding after a storm? Where are the accidents happening on a regular basis? Your environmental team, well, they're just going to mess up your schedule right off the bat. So you want to bring them in and ask all the questions as soon as you can. Traffic and safety, you want to get that safety analysis put together and your safety studies put together. And get with your utilities. What are the SOW impacts? What level of complexity are you going to deal with there? Geotechnical, do we have tough soils conditions? Are there rockfall hazards? What's going to impact your project? And then landscape architecture. This is not a last minute call that you want to bring them in. They might have some stakeholder input or have some information about a corridor, keeping the corridor aesthetics similar. I've got Steve Griffin in the room with me here today, so I'd like to say just skip hydraulics. Don't bother to contact them, but that would get me in trouble. So make sure that you're involving them to see that big picture of your project. What are your water impacts? Is it more than the obvious roadway ditch that you need to take into consideration? Is it more than runoff from your roadway? Bridges. If you've got a bridge involved, we're going to want to look for any inspection reports and structure selection report. What is your pavement condition? Are we replacing full depth, or can we do a mill and fill? EMA. Now this, you may think EMA doesn't need to come in until the very end. They may have some good information that will help you get your budget, that early picture of your budget. They may have some insight into the area you're working in or the type of work you're getting in and what's going on in the market that would affect your prices. I often think of the project manager as the roadway designer, but if they're not, make sure that you're connecting with them.